couple of weeks ago, I decided to play 3 truths and a lie in my Instagram stories about synthetic gemstones. I gave you 4 options and I said 3 of these are true, 1 of these is a lie. Pick the big fat liar. Well, I got a lot of really interesting responses, which told me that a lot of people are really confused about synthetic gems. So if you're one of those people that's been confused about synthetic gems, this video is just for you, and it's going to help clear up a lot of those misconceptions for you. First, let's run down the options so that you can play along. All right, here we go. Number 1, synthetic gems are real gems. Is that true, or is that the liar? Number 2, synthetic gems and lab-created gems are the same. Do they mean the same thing? Are they just different terms that basically say the same thing, or are they totally different and that's the lie? Number 3, synthetic gems are harder than natural gems. Is that the one that's lying, or is that another one of the truths? And the last one is synthetic gems are made in a lab. They were human grown in a lab, and natural gems are grown in the ground. Which one of those is true and which one is the big fat liar? So I think the first thing that you have to do is you have to be able to define terms. And I think as soon as you understand the terms behind these things, this will clear up a lot of the misconceptions. So there's synthetic gems, real gems, and imitation gems. So when you go back to option 1, which was, are they real or are they fake? They are actually real gemstones. They are not imitation gemstones. Imitation gemstones are things like glass or plastic. It's something that looks like a natural gemstone, but isn't a natural gemstone at all. It was made to imitate the look of a gemstone. So I think just knowing the terminology will help clear up a lot of that confusion going forward. So what the heck are synthetic gems then? Well, I think it's really important to know that synthetic gems are chemically, optically, and physically identical. Identical, that's going to be important going forward, to natural gems. The only difference is that synthetic gems were made in a lab and natural gems formed in the ground. That's it. That's the only difference. All right, so let's take another step back and let's talk about what that actually means. What does it mean when something is optically, physically, and chemically identical? Well, it means that it's going to look the same. Visually, it's going to look the same as a natural gem because it's a real gem. Chemically, it has the same chemical components and same chemical structure as a natural gem. When they're synthetic gems, they still have that same crystalline structure as a natural gem. And the same physical properties, it basically means that if you put it into a ring, it's going to react the exact same way that a natural gem would react in that same setting. So I hope that clears up a lot of things, but let's just keep going and let's keep talking about it. And I think a lot of these other pieces will start to fit into place. So number 3 in here was the thing that was the lie. And number 3 said, lab-created gems are harder than natural gems. Well, if something is chemically, optically, and physically identical, which is why I stressed that word before, you can't have something that's harder than something that's identical to it. If it's identical, it's the same thing. So it can't be harder. But I do think I understand where this is coming from. Now, I think where this is coming from is people hear and see things on the internet like emeralds that have surface-reaching inclusions. So there are gemstones that have inclusions inside the stone, and then there are gemstones that have inclusions that go from the inside of the gem to the outside of the gem. So that's a surface-reaching inclusion. It reaches the surface. When you have inclusions that reach the surface of a gemstone and you happen to hit it exactly at that point, yes, you will create a larger chip, a larger crack, or you can oftentimes crack it in half if you're hitting it on a cleavage plane. However, that does not necessarily mean that that's going to happen every time that you have a surface reaching inclusion. So I need you to kind of think about that as you go forward too. Remember also, not all gems have surface reaching inclusions, but I think that's where this misconception is coming from, is that people say that synthetic gems aren't going to have those surface reaching inclusions, and therefore synthetic gems are going to be more durable or harder. And like I said, there's a difference between hardness and durability. So it's really important that you have these basic understandings yourself so that you can fight the misconceptions that are, or just the flat out mistruths that are floating around on the internet. So I think where this is coming from is people hear the word inclusion and surface reaching inclusion. Now, an inclusion was something that grew, and then the gemstone grew around that thing. So that thing that grew first was included in the gemstone. That's why it's called an inclusion. So sometimes you have inclusions that are really, really big, and they reach the surface of the crystal or the gemstone itself once it's faceted. If you hit a gemstone at exactly that point where that surface reaching inclusion is, you can chip the gemstone. So I think that's where this is coming from. Now, don't buy gemstones with inclusions, or surface reaching inclusions rather. Don't buy gemstones with surface reaching inclusions. How do you do that? I'm so glad you asked. It's something that we're going to be talking a lot more about as we go into the rest of this year. So if this was a video that you liked, remember, bookmark this channel and subscribe to this channel so that as we go forward in the rest of the year, you get all of these juicy tidbits that you need to know before you go out and start buying vintage and antique jewelry. I am Nicole, I'm Jewelry Nerd, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.